What's up, guys? It's Barrett, and I got a comment a little while ago asking me, what is the point of rudiments? Like, why are they important, And so let's talk about that, What's the importance in practicing them, and why should we even worry about them as drummers? Let's talk about it. So what I like to tell my students is there's really three main sort of facets or contexts or ways of studying anything in drumming. And that is a groove context or study, a fill or moving around context or study, and then sort of a technique or hands or rudimental way of studying drums. And so that pretty much answers the question. Why are rudiments important? Well, because they're really the third most important thing to study as a drummer. Think about it this way. If you only ever practice grooves, then that's grooves, right? If you only ever practice moving around, then you can play grooves and you can play fills, and that's great. But what happens if you're trying to play Everlong, for example? One of the main reasons why Everlong is thought of as being so difficult is because people don't practice the third facet of study of drumming that much. They don't practice rudiments. And what do I mean by that? Well, rudiments can really be boiled down to certain patterns and groups of patterns. So we have singles, right? Back and forth strokes. You can do this match grip, French grip, whatever, okay? And so singles are important to practice because we can use them in lots of different ways. We can use them around the drums, but we can also use them in grooves, right? 16th note grooves. One yinda, two yinda. And at the end of the day, the fastest you're able to play singles for a long period of time is as fast as you'll be able to move around the drums, and it's as fast as you'll be able to play grooves like this. So at the end of the day, practicing singles allows you to do more stuff, right? And what I mean by that is practicing singles at different tempos. The only reason why speed is really important is because it allows us to do more. That's really it. If I can play singles faster, then I can use singles faster, right? And it's also just good for our technique in general. And so when we're talking about singles, for example, it's good to practice one hand first, like an eights technique, rebound, and then fill that in with the other hand. That's a good way to practice singles. Then there's doubles, and doubles are really important because they just are, man. I mean, doubles is just part of playing drums. Doubles eventually turn into rolls, right? And so think of it this way. You're not really going to use doubles that often in grooves, right? Unless you know how. So rudiments aren't important until they are, basically, right? I mean, there's so many different things I can use doubles for. But typically on drum set, doubles are used for rolls. And rolls have a specific context. So you have 5, you have 6, you have 7. And I can make a roll video if you want me to, but rolls is a whole nother thing. That deserves a whole video in and of itself, but rolls are actually made up of primarily doubles. And so practicing doubles in general allows you to play doubles whenever you need to play doubles or whenever you want to play doubles. And essentially what doubles do is they allow you to move around quicker. And it's hard to explain completely why doubles are so important. They just are. And so singles and doubles are our first, most important sort of rudimental things that we practice with our hands. The next category is paradiddles. And the reason why paradiddles are so important is because they combine singles and doubles. It took me a long time to figure out that, actually, because usually you're just told to play paradiddles. You're not actually told why they're important. Well, they're important because they help you control being able to play singles and doubles sort of together, okay? Meaning when I'm playing a paradiddle, I'm going single, single, double, single, single, double. And all the paradiddles work exactly like that. So technically this one's called a single paradiddle. Notice I'm not trying to put an accent on it because when you first start out playing rudiments, you really should play them all evenly. And then once you know how to play rudiments evenly, then you can try to put more dynamics into it and add more of an accent tap style. But that's a whole nother video as well. So you have the single paradiddle, you have the double paradiddle, which is 4 groups of singles and then a double, 4 groups of singles and then a double. Which that can be used in grooves for sure. And then you have the triple paradiddle. But the point is, you can keep doing that on and on forever. Then you have the paradiddle diddle. Single, single, double, double. Single, single, double, double. Paradiddle diddle is really cool because it's literally 2 singles and 2 doubles. 2 groups of doubles. But you could carry this philosophy on, right? You could do 4 groups of singles and 2, or there are 2 groups of doubles, right? There's a lot of stickings out there that are still good to practice. And sticking just refers to any time we're playing R's and L's, rights and lefts. So say I do like RL, RL, RR, LL. Say that's a sticking, right? Well, that's not technically called a rudiment, but it could. It could be. And so, you know, rudiments are just a great place to start anyways. There's lots of things that drummers play that probably should even be called a rudiment, you know? Like right, left, groups of 5s. Why is that not a rudiment? I don't know. It's a good thing to practice, though. You know what I mean? And so the fact that whether something is a rudiment or not doesn't really matter. I mean, technically what I'm doing when I'm doing even groups of 5s is singles and doubles, right? Single, 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 double. Single, 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 double. So at the end of the day, just like anything else in life, it's all about learning how to combine what you're learning, right? And that's what a teacher is good for anyways. We're there to help you filter all the stuff that maybe is not as necessary to learn. But paradiddles are very necessary to learn. And traditionally speaking, you practice this stuff on a pad or a snare drum, and then you can kind of learn to move it around, you know? Because drum set players do need to learn how to move this stuff around, but don't worry about moving it around first, right? And once again, you can always put this stuff into a groove context, but that's not the exact only purpose to learn it, you know? All this stuff can be put in different contexts, whether it's moving it around or in a groove context. So the funny thing about flams, which is the next type of rudiment that you would study and practice, is drum set players typically don't play flams in the style in which they're really traditionally taught. Drum set players just typically take up both sticks and then do one hand at a time, right? Typically left to right, because then you can move around the toms easier. And this is sort of what I actually usually call this a drum set flam. Why don't we just accept the fact that there's a drum set style flam, right? Because it's true. I mean, when you're playing Nirvana or anything like that, you're not really playing a flam in the traditional sense. So drum set flam is what I call it when you have both hands up the same height, basically, with the same power. And it's just about the spacing at that point, left to right. And typically a bass drum comes after them, and that's why you practice something I like to call flam bass. Flam bass, flam bass, flam bass, flam bass, flam bass. But traditionally speaking, flams in a rudimental and technical sense are actually, they have 2 different stick heights. You have a stick height for the grace note down here, and a stick height up here for the primary note. And even saying that word, those words, stick heights, drum set players typically don't concern themselves with stick heights as much. And that's because they mostly concern themselves with grooves and fills. And the guys who don't dig deeper into technique don't get the control that rudiments give you, okay? When you really practice technique, you need to be doing it for a technical purpose. The whole point is, practicing technique will give you things in your playing that playing grooves and fills won't. And that's the main reason why rudiments are so important. Just take flams, for example. You have a different stick height on both hands, and that's the first part of the flam. And then the grace note plays, and then the primary note plays. So the grace note's the low note, the primary note's the high note. Well, if you play like that in a rock band, you know, it's going to be kind of a girly sound. So you have to use this in the right context. But when you practice flams and flam rudiments, you're not really doing it for a rock and roll purpose, okay? You're doing it for a technical purpose. So you could argue that all the different flam rudiments, like flam taps, you could look at that and say, well, what's the point of that? When would I ever use that on drum set, Barrett? It's not the point. The things that you learn by practicing flam taps and the technique and the control, okay, the technique and the control that you learn just by practicing something like a flam tap will help you in all kinds of different ways in learning how to get faster and learning how to really designate your stick height when you're playing like a hi-hat or even any cymbal for that matter, because drum set players do this a lot. where they play a higher stick height with a louder sound, accented sound, and then a more relaxed sound. We do that all the time, like on the crash cymbal or on the hi-hat. There is always crossover in why you practice rudiments and things that happen on drum set, but there's also time and places where I might play like a flam accent, which is right flam, left flam, right, left. When am I ever going to use this on drum set? Well, I could make a time when it would be used, like Travis Barker, you know. And that's why drummers like guys like Travis, because he takes things that aren't really drum set style and turns it into something that's a drum set type part, right? Or could be thought of as a drum set part. So at the end of the day, we practice rudiments for a technical purpose. And the thing is too, is you don't have to learn these technical exercises from the very beginning. That's sort of an old school way of methodology where they put a snare drum in front of you first and then they give you a drum set like it's a graduation point. I've never believed in that philosophy, and I don't teach that to my students. Get a firm hand over your grooves first. Start moving some groups around on the toms, which is actually singles, but you don't have to know that. Don't think about it as that. Don't think about it as a scary rudiment. Just start moving your hands around the drums, right? And then once you get a certain facility around playing just some basic grooves and fills on the drum set, you're going to hit a plateau. And then you're going to look at me and go, well, what am I supposed to do now? And I look at you and say, you know that rudiment chart that's up there on the wall? Let's start doing some of those, because that plateau will magically start to disappear because of the technique that you learn through rudiments allows you to break through things. And the most important thing that it allows you to break through, honestly, is speed. You'll start to find that you can play things a lot faster with a lot more control, with a lot better technique. Now, is that important? It's only as important as you want it to be, you see? So, you know, you can always go through your whole drumming career without practicing rudiments, but you'll have bad technique more than likely, and it won't be, you just won't get the full picture, right? There'll be things missing, and there's always things missing. I mean, that's part of being a musician, is it's always a journey, right? We want it to be that way. I'm still on this journey on this instrument as well. But the more things you learn about the instrument and the deeper you go down that rabbit hole, better musician and better drummer you'll be. It's kind of the same question as, do you need to know how to read, drum score? Do you need to know how to read drum notation to play drums? Not really, not necessarily, but you might find a gig that does require you to do that. And you'll also find that gigs that require you to do that typically pay more, because the players that can read that notation are more valuable. And to be honest, rudiments is no different. The players who know their rudiments and can play them and have the control and the technique to be able to pull them off and be able to use them on the drum set when appropriate, they're going to be more valuable. They're going to be able to be paid more. So thanks for listening to me talking about rudiments and why they're important. And I know this was a long video, and for those who made it to the end, cool, man. I'll see you guys on the next one, all right? Write me a comment and ask me another question, and we'll do some more lessons, all right? See you on the next one.